We have from Argentina, philosopher and writer Julio Ozon. He is a student of philosophy and have been at the Aix in Provence, France. He was part of countercultural movement in San Francisco, USA in the 60s. Then he moved to Nevada to the ranch, the highest in Spain, where he lived for 15 years. He devoted to reflections, contemplations on the philosophy, one of the by the Argentinian ambassador and the publisher as the first Latin American philosopher published in India. He has made a large documentary film called Hindu Traditions. Another speaker we have Venerable Tulku Rinpoche, the spiritual leader, founder of Yogi Tosu Rinchen Rinpoche Foundation based in Miami, Florida. Venerable Tulku is the founder and spiritual leader of Yogi Tesoru Dekan Rinpoche Foundation based in Miami. Rinpoche has devoted his life to the championing humanitarianism and efforts. He traveled throughout the world teaching the Buddha, Dhamma, the path of awakening, the greater good of empowering humanity and revitalizing the society. Another speaker from Mongolia, we have Mr. It's really difficult to pronounce the name. Emtso. As a chair, I'll make some initial remarks about this conference and the tradition and the value system we have been discussing last 2 days. And will request our every panelist to complete their presentation between 20 to 25 minutes. What dharma is? This is a basic question to begin with. I'm citing a quotation of C. Rajgopalachari. C. Rajgopalachari, after becoming first and last Indian Governor General of India, said in his address, "There is no country which can be governed more easily than India. You have only to appeal to the traditions. All the great old kings of the past, Jatak and Sri Rama, are still alive and governing our herds. I'm not the Governor General of India, it's Sri Rama." Why I'm quoting this one? I'm not going to define what dharma is and how it has been influencing our society. Only few reminders from history and the literature. One such literature is coming to my mind is a wonderful literature. It's a 4-volume publication by Metcalfe, Cambridge publication. The title of the publication, title of the book, 4-volumed book, is Ideologies of the Raj. And in introduction, Metcalfe quotes Warren Hastings, 1772. In a meeting of governors in Calcutta, and Warren Hastings says in quotes, if you wish to govern this country, then govern this country through its values, traditions, and civilizational beliefs. Quote, unquote. And here, Metcalf clearly indicates the changing pattern in the ideological perspective of the British government, and 1773 in form of Regulating Act to India. And the whole discourse of governance change. And looking at the discourse, change discourse, two names comes to my mind. One is Macaulay, another is Max Muller. The letter written by Macaulay to his wife regarding education, British education to India, and its impact, and how it will change the narrations in Indian society. That is one example of the conspiracies of the Raj. Another one is Max Muller. And Max Muller, in his book, India, What It Can Teach Us, on page 21, clearly identifies Dharma. And he says that if Dharma is used in its literal sense to the India, majority of the problems of India is resolved. And there's a design by the academia of that time, British academia of that time, to use religion purposefully at the place of Dharma. And I'm quoting Max Muller. It's quoted by Eliot Wenger in 2000, again published by Cambridge. The title of the book is Karmic Traditions. Max Muller quotes, "The traditions of Veda will hereafter tell a great extent on the fate of India and on the growth of millions of souls in that country. It is the root of their religion, and to show them what the root is, I feel sure is to only way is uprooting all that has sprung from 3,000 years. Look at the purpose. Look at the intention behind the uses of the vocabulary in form of religion at the place of Dharma. Majority of times, this modern self reflects only the religion, and it revolves around our worship methods. But Dharma, as a concept, provides organic structure to the life and society. Organic means to the lives of the society, and that is still governing the society. That's why Rajgopalachari said in his first address, after being appointed as first Governor General of India, Indian Governor General of India, Sri Ram is the Governor General of India, because still that prevails in the society. With these words, I invite Rinpoche Ji, Venerable Tiklu Rinpoche Ji, please come and address us. Thank you.
before I start any of my speech, I say a few words of a prayer. Om Swaste. Lama la japsun chiwo, Sanje la japsun chiwo, Chue la japsun chiwo, Gendun la japsun chiwo. I take refuge in the Lama. I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. May all sentient beings obtain happiness and the causes of happiness. May they all be free of suffering and the causes of suffering. May they not be separate from the bliss that is without suffering. May they dwell in equanimity, free from attachment, hate, and aversion. Namo lumitenji gombo lama chen tanjur dini shindu nye baraka jeza meta chiwi chujantin gedi leji junde luame kamsum korwa dungha jansu nang ranyi talo chulanju warsho. O homage, my Lord, infallible constant protector, you who know the freedoms and endowments of the human birds are extremely difficult to obtain. Whoever is born and is impermanent and born to die. Virtues and harmful actions that cause inevitable results. The nature of three realms of cyclic existence is oceans of suffering. Remembering these, may my minds and all others find towards the Dharma. Good morning to all, and thank you for having me and speak at this precious event. I and many of the Tibetan who lives in India and all around the world are always in debt to Bharat, to India, to Hindustan. All the great Mahasiddhas, great beings who have enlightened in this world, that is all because of the great land of India that has produced great Mahasiddha. You can just see example of our Tibetan culture, traditions. We never can repay these kindness that has been blessed upon us. Especially I want to thank to Honorable President Sri Ramnath Kovind, who have made his time, precious time, for all this great Nalanda event and the India Foundation. And special thanks to Sri Ram Madhavji, because from the day one that when Sanchi program took place, he invited me on the first day, and I made my time. Even though I always run around in the rural area, I was not able to catch phones and internets, but somehow these days lately I'm traveling around the world, so access is more kind of convenient. And also, especially to India Foundation, Vice Chancellor of Nalanda University, Professor Sunaina Singh. Special thanks to you, madam. And Guru Prakash ji, and those who have assisted in this event that made it possible. Without every being who have participated, it would not be possible at all. And also the chairperson of the SB Singh here. Thank you, sir. And also speaker on the stage. And brothers and sisters. It is by the grace of all the Mahasiddhas of Nalanda, great teachers of all religions, who have, in their own gentle way, given our world so many precious jewels of gems, form of Dharma teachings and example how they live their life. That you can see how it has brought a change, as I mentioned in earlier, in our Tibetan, entire Tibet has transformed because of bringing these teachings, Dharma teachings, into Tibet. Even I am the third generation of which has taken refuge in India, yet we are quite strongly devoted our life for the sake of Dharma, because that is our culture. That is our soul backbone of our heart. Without that, it is almost impossible to be alive. Relating to the theme, state and social order in Dharma traditions, Dharma can be many ways to refer, interpreted, or any sect or religion. In what I understand of Dharma is referring mostly to the truth or the ultimate reality of the way things really are. Dharma, I see it as the very antidote for all the cyclic in the samsara. In order to have a Dharma in our life, Buddhas and Bodhisattvas or Mahasiddhas are very important. Without them, it is almost impossible to rectify or execute the exact antidote or prescription for that sickness or the cause. And also that refer that very practitioner or applying that very truth of the way of life to the Sangha or the community who follows that Dharma, practicing every day with the loving kindness and compassion, with the equanimity to all beings. If we have three of these all together as a combined, then there is no way that we cannot win over the suffering of illusions. I don't want to judgment or contradict with any of the speakers in the past 2 days, but Professor Dutt yesterday said a very interesting thing, which I wrote it down, as he said, Dharma is authority. Dharma is authority. It can be referred into that too. And we are the protector of the Dharma or the authority. It is very well said and it is very beautiful with the faith and devotions and all of those things. One thing especially whenever I get a chance to go into any conference, I always say this. In fact, 4 years back or 5 years back when we started this conference, I also mentioned the same thing. as being a protector of the Dharma, I think it is very important to understand that who holds the Dharma? Dharma is universal. Dharma is not owned by anyone. If you are courage and brave enough, you are the Dharma. And so therefore, we have this concept today with a very orthodox kind of mindset to say, I want to protect my Lord and my Dharma. For the sake of that, I want to be army for that. What I want to send this little message every year, every event, is the place that we take refuge, under Almighty God or Buddha, enlightened beings, whoever that is. It applies to not only for particular religious, but all religious, all believe. The one who is, we call it Almighty Lord, He is the protector, saver, or creator. He can protect himself, isn't it? We really don't have to go there with the guns and knife to say, I am the protector for so and so. It looks a little funny, but it is a very serious matter. If you're promoting in this way peace and harmony, to bring the peace and harmony in this planet where we call home to all of us, then we are really not promoting very well. We are not using very good brain that we have. I go to Buddha to take refuge is because I know that he can protect himself. He has protected himself. Not only that, but he protects me. I don't have to be standing in front of him with all kinds of instruments to say, I'm the army for him. If that's so, then I don't think I will go there to take refuge under that. It needs a protection. Does that make sense? It's a common sense. Even a small kid will ask a question tomorrow to the world leader, a so-called religious leader. We must have a better answer for this. And so therefore, I request, please carry on this. As many of you know, the Gautam Buddha mission was to help fix the social and inequality problem in the samsara. The Kali Yuga age is soon going to be finished. But before this era is over, we will see the increase of a social, political, financial, and religious differences on the planet. Now than ever, it is important to remember the teaching of the Lord Buddha about the middle way, and the teachings of the Bhagwan Krishna in the chapter 6 of the Bhagavad Gita. Natasya natastu yogaste nachaikanta namastanata nachatisvatna chelasya jagrato naiva chai Arjuna. Yoga is not possible for him who eats too much, nor for him who does not eat at all, nor for him who sleeps too much, nor for him who is always awake, O Arjuna. Yukta hara viharasya yukta jistrasya karmasu yukta vapana vabobasya yogata bhavati dukkaha. yoga becomes the destroyer of the pain of him who is always moderate in the eating and reaction, such as walking, who is moderate in exertions in action, who is moderate in the sleep and wakefulness. Therefore, it is important to keep a balance in all areas of our life, such as in our work, physical health, eating habits, exercising bodies, spreading times with the families, and finally, doing our daily sadhana. Anything is extreme cause suffering. Doing everything is moderation is the key. Doing our duty towards oneself and people that are dependent on us without expecting fruits from our action will lead us to the happiness, content, and peaceful. When we are internally happy, then automatically we spread happiness to our families. When our families is happy, then it spreads to our neighbors. When our neighbors are happy, then our society is happy, which will eventually reduce the greed, corruption, insecurity, hate, and equality in our world. The result of a guarantee ensure that all people have a food, clothes, shelter, and education, and better health. The problem in the world is so big that often people feel that one person can do to fix the problem. Being happy, spreading happiness around you, being an example how to live in Dharma, teaching your children on importance of a being. Literally, you don't have to teach your children. You be the example, they observe everything. They get it. They are more smarter and more intelligent than today's adults. And so, important being happy in the grateful under the condition of most powerful way you can. Change your life and life of all those around you. If you plant a seed of a sweet banana tree, water it daily, make sure it receives a sufficient sunlight, and protect it from the harm, you will eventually receive the fruits of banana from the tree, not jalapeno, because it wasn't jalapeno's seed. Some ways, when you sow a seed of genuine happiness in your life, in the lives of around, you continue to feed your mind, heart, and life daily sadhana with the seva. You protect your mind from harm by the listening, speaking, and spreading up only positive things. And keeping the right company, you will eventually receive the audience of happiness in your life. And in our society, it is impossible to receive fruit of suffering if you sow seed of happiness in your life. Let me share a little story, please, from the Mahabharata, which is inspired. Every chapter of the Mahabharata is always very inspiring. Shri Krishna and Arjuna were taking a scroll when they came across to Brahmin who was begging. Arjuna, out of the pity, gave him a pouch full of gold coin, and Brahmin was overjoyed and set off to his home with romantic songs and his heart, dreamy eyes on his way, and suddenly the robber looted. So on the following day, he was out begging again. Arjuna was surprised to see him. On hearing his story, Arjuna felt pity again, gave him valuable gems, and made sure that the man hid it in his pocket while going home. The Brahmin hid it in an old mud pot and was lying unused for a long time in his house. His wife had gone out to fetch the water from the river. On her way back, she felt and her pot water broke. So she went home and quietly picked up the old mud pot and went fetch water again. The Brahmin was as fast asleep. The moment she lowered the pot into the river to fill up, the gems fell out. She went home totally unaware of lose the hat just caused it. The Brahmin cursed his destiny when he realized what had happened. The next day he was back in begging again. Isn't true that we may give something to another, but we cannot change their destiny. But enlightened can, or God can. When Krishna and Arjuna heard the tearful story of the poor Brahmin, Krishna quietly gave 2 paisa to the Brahmin. Arjuna exclaimed, "O Dinabandhu, I could not redeem him of the poverty even by giving him many gold coins and precious gems. What difference will 2 paisa make? Perhaps it is the destiny that he shall always be begging." Krishna just smiled, and Brahman too was baffled with the paltriness of the Krishna's donation, especially in contrast with the Arjuna's largesse. On the way home, the Brahmin saw a fisherman had caught a fish, which was grasping of life. He felt pity of the poor creature and thought to himself, "These 2 paisa will not even enough to buy even one small meal. So I let buy the fish and save his life." The Brahmin bought the fish for 2 paisa and immediately put it into his begging bowls and poured water into it. He sets off towards the river and released the fish. He then noticed that the fish spat out something. It was the same precious gems that Arjuna gave him, that he had hid it in a mud pot. The Brahmin was overjoyed in his ecstasies and exclaimed, I found it, I found it." Coincidentally, the robber who had looted him, his pouch full of gold coin, was sitting just here. And he thought Brahman had recognized him and was shouted, "I found him, I found him." Fearing that he will be taken to the king's court and punished it, he begged the Brahmin pardon him and also returned the gold coin. Arjuna was stunned. He said, "Krishna, what I could not achieve by giving so much, you have achieved it by giving so little. What is the mystery here? What is the mystery?" Very interesting about Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita here is all about questioning and answering and clarifying who you are and how you live. And Krishna smiled and beautifully, bewitched smile and said, "Both times when you give it him, he thought only of his personal comfort, only himself, and the betterment of his life. When I gave him, he thought about woes of another life, another creature. Truly speaking, when someone shows sympathy and helps someone, he is doing my work. When he is doing my work, how can I not do his?" That was the great teachings of the Lord Krishna. I will conclude with a little prayer here. So please bear with me this little prayer. I will request Nalanda in the future, please start with some prayers and conclude with the aspiration prayer that could even more, India can move forward with a better man tomorrow. And no one today India can stop. This is guaranteed because many of the great from centuries have blessings on this land. These I'm very overjoying with because now India is getting into education system where it is enlightening, and that's a future. As long as I remain unaware of the consequences my action will bring, I will just go on, behave like a madman. But once I see clearly how my all past wandering has kept me wandering in the interval of suffering of samsaric existence, I'm bound to be stricken with a deep remorse about all the negative actions I have committed. Completely losing to urge to repeat them, with strong, sincere regret, I shall confess all my faults and nothing else back. Buddhas and Bodhisattvas all together, whatever kind of motivation you have, whatever kind of beneficial action, whatever kind of wishing prayers, whatever kind of omniscience, whatever kind of life accomplishments, whatever kind of benevolent power, whatever kind of immense wisdom you have, similarly, who we all have come in the same way to benefit all sentient beings, pray to attain these qualities. Throughout my many lifetime until this moment, whatever virtue I have accomplished, including the merit it generates by this practice, and all that I will ever attain, I offer for the welfare of all sentient beings. May sickness, war, famine, and suffering be decreased for every being, while their wisdom and compassion increase. In this and every future life, may I clearly perceive all experiences to be an insubstantial as the dream fabric of the night, and instantly awaken to the perceive of the pure display in the rising of every phenomenon. May I quickly attain enlightenment in order to work ceaselessly for the well-being of sentient beings. From now on until enlightenment, I will work ceaselessly for the welfare of others. In each moment, I vow to reduce my fault, increase my qualities of the wisdom and compassion by following the spiritual path of Dharma-Dhamma, and merit it generates. May I and all others find freedom from suffering and realize in it enlightenment potential. Gewandi nyurtuta kunchu sumbundrubjune nroa chikjamalipa the salangwe parasho. By this virtue, may I be able to accomplish 3 jewels, and may I be able to liberate all sentient beings to the state of 3 jewels, excluding none. So there are many great teachings as above. I hope that what I have said today will make an impact to you all, not only in your daily life, but in day-to-day interaction with people whom you meet in your community. Sarva Mangalam. Thank you.
Thank you, Venerable Tiklu Rinpoche for aspirational prayer and blessings. In your presentation at last, you discussed about education. Only one quote. In 1886, Max Muller wrote a letter to George Campbell. George Campbell was newly appointed Secretary of State to India, and he writes that India has been conquered once, but India must be conquered again, and that conquest should be through the education. And they did it. The purpose of such events, such conferences, having Dhamma traditions, state and social order as a theme, is an effort of decolonize education system, thought process. With these words, I invite Mr. Dhamchak from Mongolia to present his paper and request him please introduce himself before the audience. Thank you.
Okay, good morning. My name is Dhamchak from National University of Mongolia, and I'm a lecturer in cultural anthropology. And first of all, I would like to thank for India Foundation as well as Nalanda University for organizing and inviting us to participate in this wonderful conference. And my topic is Chakravartin ideology and Mongol politics, universal monarch, state formation and national identity. So Mongolia sees India, it is a neighbor, spiritual neighbor. Please, next. Oh, yeah, okay. We know that the Mongols and the Indians share a common value, which is Buddha-Dharma, or Buddhism. And vocabulary of Mongolia demonstrates that Indo-Mongolian ancient culture bondness. In everyday conversation, without knowing, those words actually originated in India or Sanskrit words. We Mongols use many Sanskrit, Mongolized Sanskrit words, such as, please next. For example, there are lots of words, but I just took 11 words. For example, the first one is in Mongolian we say obdis, obdesh, and avyas, abhyas, tiv, divip, galp, kalp, Chandaman, Chintamani, Siddhi, Mahabut, and Sholok, Shwilik, Shlok, Shashing, Shashan, Shastar, Sudar, Sutra, and Sumbur, Sumero. But today I will not dwell on the Mongolized Sanskrit words, but rather I will discuss how Indian concept of Chakravartin or universal monarch is associated Mongol politics. In order to elaborate the Chakravartin ideology and Mongol politics, I will discuss association of Chakravartin ideology with three different historical periods of Mongolian history. So next, the first is I will discuss about how the Chakravartin ideology is associated with the Mongol Empire, which is 13th century. And next I will talk about Bogdkhand Mongols in 1911. And third, I will talk about the post-socialist Mongolia after 1990. So when we talk about, next please. When you talk about the Mongol Empire, we may ask how the Mongols built one of the largest empire in the human, in the world history. What imperial ideology was behind building Mongol Empire and legitimizing the Mongol rule? So we can say that imperial ideology of Mongol Empire was based on, in Mongolian we say, Munktinger, the concept or Munktinger ideology. Please next. So, and Tinger, Munk is in Mongolian eternal. And Tinger is, as we have a hard, we have a difficulty of, not previous one, please. Previous one, yeah. As we have hard to translate this, the Dharma in English. And Tinger is, just for the sake of the understanding in English, we often translate it as heaven or God. But it's not exactly what is the perceived in a Judeo-Christian tradition or any other religion. But there is a, then we, for the sake of the understanding, we translate it as heaven, but in Mongolian, Munktinger. So when we look at the decrees and orders of Mongol Hans during the Mongol Empire, it often starts with these words. Please, next. By the power of eternal heaven, by the protection of the Han's charisma. In Mongolian it says, Munktingering kuchundar, Hagano sozaling ebigeltar. So, in Mongolian empirical ideology of Munktinger, so there are two supreme powers, in heaven and on earth. Please, next. So one is Munktinger, the other is the Han. So Munktinger is, in heaven is a Munktinger, or eternal heaven, and on earth is Han, or emperor. So in political concept of Munktinger, heaven bestows a power, protection, and victory to the Han, and also entrusts him with a sacred mission to carrying out heaven's will. The concept was well suited for legitimizing the monarch and justifying the righteous kingship and conquest of the Mongol Empire. So I term this empirical ideology of Munktinger as a other power ideology. Please, next. So in this imperial ideology, Munktinger is other power ideology. So because why I'm terming it other power ideology, other power? Because under this imperial ideology of the Munktinger, the Khan's charisma or the power is supreme, but it is not greater than that of the heaven, which remains the ultimate and supreme authority that empowers the Han. Therefore, the ruler is dependent on a power that is other than him. So, power of Han depends on power of heaven. Next, please. So, under the political concept of the Munktinger, power relations between the supreme other power, heaven, and the less supreme, less self-power was not fully authorizing Han in all time. So rather, the concept of Chakravartin, as I think, the will to a universal monarch, was different imperial ideology in which Han or emperor is endowed with full power. Please, next slide. Previous one. Yep. Han himself is a power. No one is above him. In that way, under Chakravartin ideology, Han is the supreme power. So Chakravartin ideology in Mongol court actually started during the reign of Kublai Khan. Next, please. So here's a portrait of Kublai Sitsun Han, who is the Kublai Khan. So in the beginning, under Chakravartin concept, Chinggis Khan, next please, was portrayed as a Chakravartin or universal monarch. And further, he was incorporated into Buddhist cosmology. Chinggis Khan was secularized as reincarnation or avatar of Buddhist deity Vajrapani, the deity of power, and Kublai Khan as an incarnation of Manjushri, or the deity of wisdom. So this concept of Chakravartin and of this reincarnation served later on the 16th century again, after the 13th century. So Altang Han is claimed as a reincarnation of Kublai Khan. So Altang Han invited the third Dalai Lama, Sonam Gyatso, to Mongolia and bestowed the title of Dalai Lama to the third Dalai Lama, Sonam Gyatso. And in return, the Dalai Lama recognized the Altang Han as the reincarnation of the Kublai Khan. So why Altang Han needed to be claimed as a reincarnation of the Kublai Khan? This is the question. The answer is that Altang Han needed the legitimacy basis on which he can be Khan of all the Mongols. So later on, the fourth Dalai Lama, Yondan Jant, was born as a grandson of Altang Han. So now I will go to the next historical period in which the Chakravartin ideology was again evoked in Mongol politics. So this is, please next. In 1911, so the Mongolia declared its independence from Manchu Qing Empire and enthroned the 8th Bog Dharma as the great Khan of all the Mongol nation. So the new reign title was given to him, the elevated by all. Next, please. So the reign title actually has a symbolic meaning, which suggests that Mongol Khans are the descendant of Mahasamat. In Mongolian, Olna Orgukhtsa means Mahasamat, the elevated by all, or Mahasamat. So in Mahasamat, we all know that the Mahasamat is the first ruler of the world. So the title actually says that we, the Mongols, have a legitimate right over self-ruling, if not entitled to rule the world. So when the Bog Han Dharma was enthroned as the great Khan of the Mongol nation, he was offered 7 treasures of the Chakravartin. So we all know about these 7 treasures of Chakravartin: wheel, elephant, horse, jewel, queen, military general, and minister. So we can say that to a certain extent, the ideology of Chakravartin, or universal monarch, was an inspiring ideology for establishing independent Mongol state in early 20th century. So Chakravartin and an incarnation concept in Buddhist cosmology is not only associated with the Mongolian past history, but also relevant in contemporary Mongolian political discourse. So with the collapse of socialism in 1990, Mongolia lost its socialist identity. The nation needed new identity, national pride, and inspiration. From where Mongolia can build such a new identity, national pride, and inspiration? So Mongolia looked back at its past, the brightest past of the Mongolia, which was a legacy of the Mongol Empire and its founder, Genghis Khan. So with consideration of, please next. Okay, fine. With consideration of majority of Mongolian believers are Buddhist, and the Buddhist entanglement with the Mongolian history, culture, and tradition, the Mongol state acknowledges the predominant status of Buddhism in Mongolia. So therefore, Mongolian state acknowledges Genghis Khan as a reincarnation of Vajrapani. And Vajrapani is the patron deity of Mongolia in the public discourse. So one of the examples of this state acknowledgement is that in 2007, the Mongolian former president Enkhbayar issued a decree of commissioning an applique of Vajrapani deity. Please, next. So this is the Vajrapani deity applique. So we will see that in the center is the Vajrapani, the deity, Buddhist deity of the power. So under the Vajrapani, we see that maybe it's not seen for the audience, but under the Vajrapani is Chengiz Khan. And this Vajrapani is actually flanked by the two other Buddhist deities. And the right side is the Avalokiteshvar. The left side is Manjushri. So we all know the Avalokiteshvar is believed as the deity of compassion, and Manjushri is the deity of wisdom. So underneath of the Avalokiteshvar is Ogoda Khan, the son of Chengiz Khan, and underneath of the Manjushri is Kublai Sitsin Khan. So, at least in a public discourse, so these three Mongolian great Khans are believed as the reincarnation of Buddhist cosmological deities. So, as Chengiz Khan is national identity and unifying force for all Mongols, the applique of Vajrapani deity is executed as a symbol of national unity. Therefore, 40 artists is representing all provinces of Mongolia, and not only from the Mongolia, but also the artists from Inner Mongolia, Buryatia, Kalmykia, and Tuva participated in making this applique of Vajrapani. So that measure is about 15 to 12 meters. So in height is 15 meters, and width is 12 meters. Pretty much big statue, big applique. So in this sense, we can say that Indian Buddhist cosmology plays for Mongolian national identity and national unity. So in 2011, another statue of Vajrapani was executed, and the Mongolian former president, Elbek Dorj, sent a message of greetings on the occasion of installing and consecrating statue of Vajrapani. The message of greeting is that we consider our Lord Chengiz Khan as an reincarnation of Vajrapani. Therefore, to worship Vajrapani symbolizes honoring and worshiping our Chengiz Khan from generation to generation. So this message delivers that worshiping Vajrapani is actually worshiping Chengiz Khan, who is Mongolian national identity and inspiration for the post-socialist Mongolia. So my conclusion is, please next. So from the 13th century to the present, Indian ideology of universal monarch or Chakravartin and reincarnation of Buddhist deities had been part of Mongolian political discourse on rulership, sovereignty, nation, and nationality, and identity also. So those Indian concepts became pivotal key symbols in Mongolian culture system. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you, Mr. Demchek, for giving a picture of Mongolian society and belief system. Vajrapani, much respected. Then reincarnation theory, again a belief of India. Chakravarti Samrat, again a belief from India. Thank you so much for telling these things from Mongolia, that we share a relationship. With these words, I invite Julio Ozan for his lecture.
Namaste to all of you. Um, I, the, I will try to say what is convenient or the advantages that the Dharma and the Dhamma needs to be inserted in modern society. I had prepared 4 subjects, but I would jump the first one because of the time that I'm required to talk, and other exposers need to talk too. The first one deal with the relation of the Dhamma and the Dharma. I will bypass this part, but I can guarantee you that from the philosophical point of view, from the essential point of view, the Dhamma and the Dharma do not contradict, and they aim to the same object. So we'll jump all these pages. The second subject I wanted to elaborate on is the relation between the Indic civilization and the Western civilization. For this subject, we will use some aspect of my philosophy of history. 3 great civilizations have produced the human being: the Chinese, the Indic, and the Western. At this point, we are dealing with the common root of the last 2, the Indo-European civilization. The Indic civilization is founded and inspired in the Dharma and the Dharma. These are the doctrines or traditions that have made possible this civilization. Western civilization is founded and inspired in Hellenic or Greco-Roman culture. It is this tradition that have made Western civilization possible. These 2 civilizations, the Indic and the Hellenic, have suffered invasion of other cultures and have modified in greater or lesser degree its tradition. In spite of the numerous invasions in India, it still has its tradition thanks to the Dharma and the Dhamma. And it can thus be said that this culture have been able to follow a natural evolution. Western civilization has not followed a natural evolution. The fall of the Roman Empire and the arrival of Christianity signify a great rupture in that civilization. Christianity eradicated the Hellenic tradition. Nevertheless, the West has not been able to do away with the Hellenic tradition. The latter has always been an unfailing point of reference for philosophy, science, art, literature, and culture in general. It is then that Western civilization took a different turn from Indic civilization. The fall of Rome coincides with the Gupta age that gave rise to a long period of growth that lasts till the Mughal invasion. Thus, the Middle Ages of the West, thus described because They stretch across two ages of growth. The fall of of Rome and the Renaissance have no meaning in India. What have been rightly called the Dark Ages in the West would correspond in India with a period that should be called the Luminous Ages. The Renaissance in the West was that of the Hellenic spirit, but many centuries have passed and much water has flowed under the bridge in the wrong direction. The Westerner could not now regain the initial path. He was alienated and continued to be so. He is alienated from the universal vision of the Greeks, but at the bottom of his heart, he longs for this integral perception, for that universal consciousness. In Greece, the world was filled with gods. The spirit was present in the whole of nature, the same spirit we found in the Vedas. The love for the trees, the love for the rivers, love for the mountains, love for the sea. This integrated vision, this universal consciousness, as I like to call it, that the Westerner has lost and cannot reach because he cannot have the necessary vital experience of it, are in the Dhamma and in the Dharma. In Buddhist and Hindu countries, the Westerner can experience that unity of consciousness. The myths that are dormant in Greece, in Asia, are awake and even more alive in India than elsewhere. In the Christian myth, God created a different world from nothingness and later gave a soul only to human beings. This is sufficient to separate man from other living beings. In the Hindu myth, Brahman created a world from himself through which all beings are given life. All participate in the same spirit, in the same universal soul. The Dharmakaya, for its part, revitalize and inspire all living beings. We are Indo-European, and this reality is not just linguistic. The truth is that the more we study this particular fact, the more we discover our common roots. In the ancient texts that were orally transmitted and later written in epic form, we find not just common facts, but what is more important, the same spirit. The aspiration of being like God was the very motor of the Greek, of the heroic age, which Homer sings about. The most important heroes were the sons of gods, and some of them were admitted to the Olympus. These were not literary props to entertain the listener or the reader. They were the product of a vehement desire, of a vital impulse of perfection that pushed them to be like gods. These heroes were admired by the public because they were exemplary. The people also wanted to participate in this divine nature. The epics has always been a decisive element of education in India. Here also the gods participate in this project of transcendence of the human beings. The heroes were also related to gods and at times gods themselves. The Vedic Aryan, said Radhakrishnan, didn't show much interest in the future of the soul. Like the Greeks, life to them was bright and joyous. The plenitude of life had to be attained in this life and not after death. They never desired death but a long life. For this reason, like the Greeks, they had not special doctrines about life after death. And it is this, in my opinion, this vital attitude that has determined a basic principle of the Dhamma and the Dharma, the plenitude of life. Liberation should be attained in life, Jivan Mukta, not after death. If there is no liberation, it's life again. The Greeks also believe in the theory of reincarnation. The epic in Greece correspond to what has been called the heroic period. The classical period of its rise takes place centuries later. In this period, like in India, always taking the gods as a paradigm, the Greeks direct his ideal of perfection towards other branches of learning, like the arts and philosophy. The difference between the Greeks and the Hindu is established by the great discovery of the later, the yoga. The path of perfection, the most effective way to assimilate to the gods is through yoga. In the Hindu epics, those who have attained the power of the gods have been those who have put the yoga techniques into practice. There are some who have become so powerful that they can compete with the gods. And these practices are still in force in India. In conclusion, the illustrate Westerners who have always resorted to the Greeks' past for inspiration can find it in the present in the Dhamma and the Dharma. They do not need to go on digging in the Greek and Roman ruins. They can find it here in Nalanda. The third subject that I consider important to talk about is on the understanding of the Dhamma and the Dharma, a subject that has given rise to numerous misunderstandings in both doctrine is the unreality of the visible world as a result of the Buddhist concept of sunyata or emptiness, erroneously translated in the West as nothingness, and the Hindu concept of Maya translated as illusion. If we correctly interpret this doctrine, we will not fall in the extreme of negating this concrete reality, which would lead us into the absurdity of simply believing that those of us who are present are not here and that we are talking about empty, inexistent subjects. And this happens if we follow word by word the logic of Nagarjuna and Shankara, who are the most logical exponents of these doctrines. It is not unusual that in the task of philosophizing, the philosopher become a prisoner of his concepts. In order to avoid this trap, the reader should put common sense before logic. Shankara does not hesitate in saying in his Viveka Kudamani, all that you see is unreal. There is no difference between the wakeful state and a dream. Maya creates everything, the body, sense, prana, and ego. Everything is unreal. And he brings out this idea from the Dhammapada. Everything we see is a creation of the mind. That he uses the Buddhist ideas and concepts should not surprise us. Shankara is a son of Buddhism, even though a grandson of Hinduism. But it's one thing to erroneously interpret the reality and quite another to create reality. We cannot keep talking this way. We had to jump out of this web of terminology. We cannot tell to the modern science when they are splitting atoms that they don't know what this reality is. But we can tell them that they are looking from a wrong perspective. That's why they are misusing them. Because here lays the problem, that science are using the homocentric, the egocentric perspective and ignore the universal or essential perspective used in the sutras and the Upanishads. For this reason, instead of talking about unreality, which is an extreme, I prefer to talk about perspectives that keep transforming the interpretation of reality. It is not just Western philosophers that have interpreted that the Dhamma and the Dhamma deny visible reality. The brothers Asanga and Vasubandhu of the Yogacara school accused Nagarjuna of being nihilist. And Shankara, in his commentary on the Brahma Sutras, criticized Buddhism for the same fault. And less than a century ago, Sri Aurobindo drew a comparison between Buddhism and Vedanta and the Vedanta of Shankara, and accused both of them also of nihilism. In the chapters devoted to them, called the cosmic illusion. The matter is very important and should be clarified. So, I have no time to clarify. The difficulty of inserting the Dhamma and the Dharma in contemporary society. All the Buddhist sutras and the Upanishad are written from the perspective of the Absolute. And for this reason, they are not only comprehensible for those who have an elevated level of consciousness that allows them to intuit the transcendent. For the others, the great majority of human beings, this language is unintelligible. They just don't know what they're talking about. In time of spiritual growth, the number of people of spirit is higher. In periods of spiritual decline, like the present one, these sacred texts never reach the understanding of the wider people. For them, Sat Chit Ananda means nothing. Their knowledge is vain information. Their existence is day to day, and they look for their happiness in the acquisition of objects and in increasing their comfort. The human being, especially in the West and in the countries where has extended its influence, has suffered a long and constant process of individuation and exteriorization that has ended up alienating him from the essence of life. The whole materialism, including its philosophy, is a result of the said alienation. Centuries ago, man have managed to satisfy his basic needs, but in his mind, he has still not gone beyond the stage of survival. For this reason, he obsessively insists in his security and the constant acquisition of things. Consumer society stimulates this mentality and keeps humans in this stage. In the same way, the constant growth of population permanently generates new needs and tend to perpetuate the survival stage, which is an elemental and primitive stage in the evolution of human beings. Those who are not conscious of their individuation and mental exteriorization or their alienation and have not gone beyond their survival stage have no possibility of understanding and even less of practicing the Dhamma and the Dharma. I believe that the Dharma and the Dhamma are found with a great counter-trend, and inserting them in contemporary society is thus a heroic task. Nevertheless, I promise to do everything possible for this aspiration to become reality, because I believe that can be a decisive step in the history of humanity if these two universal forces can together push the wheel of life. Thank you.
Thank you, philosopher Zuli Ozan, for providing us a canvas where we can think a lot about the practices and realities of the Dharma and Dhamma. Friends, while listening, Professor Sinha yesterday, when he was discussing about self and the swa, one thing came to my mind, that was swa in Balmiki and Swadharma in Balmiki and Dharma in Balmiki. And if we look at the Buddhist tradition, we do find an example of Angulimal, again, Swadharma of Angulimal, what he thought of prior meeting the Buddha, Tathagat. And these two, the Swa of Balmiki and the Swa of Angulimal, and after meeting the incarnations, Tathagat and Param Brahma, the whole discourse changes. And here I am taking few references from Valmiki for Dharma, for Raj Dharma, and through Valmiki, I would like to conclude in few minutes this session. And according to Ramayana, it is the good conduct, ideal good conduct of the king who makes the life easier for the society. The word used by Valmiki for God Ram is Prajapalakaha. And these are the words still in society. Without such words used in our academia, the society still is going with these dharmic principles and ethos. And one word come to my mind is the Harishchandra, name of Harishchandra. You speak truth and people will equate you with Harishchandra. Harishchandra is not taught in universities and colleges and institutions. It is only the experience of Gandhiji with the Harishchandra Natak that became reality to the society. Even in normal behavioral aspect, we use word Harishchandra. The Ramayana has a perennial influence on the minds and attitude of men and women in India, down the country. Even today, the teaching of Ramayana as a moral value, obedience, simple living, high thinking, sacrifice, devotion, dedication, commitment, charity, and humanity are highly significant in changing modern societies. Majority of times, a question is asked by modern self-individuals and primarily the students in universities, how these texts are relevant to the modern day practices. The kind of literature we are giving to our generation, they are not talking about the duties, only rights, privileges. Though dharma as a concept talks about duties and duties only. And with the duties, attainments of the rights. You begin with Putra Dharma, Pitri Dharma, Matri Dharma, Apad Dharma, Rashtra Dharma, Samaj Dharma. And you look at the discourse of Dharma, worship methods become hardly a one part of it. Unfortunately, being with religion, we have been in universities and academia only for the worship methods and related discourses. With Dhamma-Dhamma conference, it's my urge, my submission to academia, to the dignitaries, participants, and delegates, start using Indian terminology, our own terminologies, our own concepts. Bharat cannot be substituted with the India. When you use Bharat, the two narratives comes to our mind. One narrative of Jain tradition, Rishabhdeva tradition, where Bharat is the 100th son of the Rishabhdeva. Those who believe in Jain tradition, they claim it was that Bharat who created this Bharat. Another tradition, those who believe in Vedic traditions, Ikshvaku traditions, Suryavansa traditions, and there is a Bharat was son of Dushyanta and Sakuntala. And he was such a Chakravarti Samrat who created this Bharat. That way, until unless we start using our own terminologies, the terminologies of this very land will not be able to establish our own values and traditions. One word is Rajdharma. What is Rajdharma? It's a judicious act of the king to take care of each and every aspect of the praja. In Jatak Katha, it was referred by a professor, after demise of a calf of a Brahmin, Valmiki writes that Brahmin is gasping the king Rama that it was your sin, that's why this calf died. In other words, in every sphere of life, it was expected that kings should be judicious enough, so dharma is established in society. When I am using dharma, again emphasizing it, it's not worship methods. Problems prevailing in the society can be resolved with our own ancient values until unless we start thinking in terms of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, until unless we start thinking in terms of Aham Brahmasmi, the divine soul which is with me, that is also an part and parcel of you. If this thought process is again re-established in the society, will reach on a position where equitable, equal, liberal society is established. Though these concepts are Western concepts, but to make it more modern, we have been equating with our thought systems. With these words, I'll thank my panelists for being so wonderful and being in time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Chairperson, for winding up the session very much on time. Without wasting much time, I request the Chairperson to kindly facilitate our speakers at the very outset to Tugu Rinpoche ji. Sir, can we get the mementos, volunteers? Thank you to Mr. Julio Ozan, who has come all the way from Argentina for us. And Mr. Lord Mchek. I request Professor Arvind Sharma, Member Board of Governors, Nalanda University, to kindly hand over a token of appreciation to the chairperson of this session, Professor S.P. Singh. With this, we conclude this session. I request all of you to please move forward because we are soon going to begin with our last final valedictory session. Please move forward. The first row shouldn't be empty. I request all of you to please come forward.